Hello everyone, welcome back to the videos on registration under GST. So, in the previous videos, we were discussing each and every provisions related to GST, and last day we discussed about the procedures for registration under Section 25. Okay, so in continuation of the last day's discussion, in today's video we will discuss about Section 26, which is deemed registration, and Section 27, Rule 13 and 15, which deals with the registration provisions related to a casual taxable person and a non-resident taxable person. Okay, so we'll begin with Section 26, which is known as the deemed registration. So in the last day when we discussed about the procedures for registration, I mentioned that deemed registration is said to happen when a particular proper officer does not convey anything or when a proper officer does not communicate anything to the applicant within 3 working days of the application of registration, then that particular registration is said to be a deemed registration. In normal cases, the proper officer should communicate within 3 days if all the documents are proper to the applicant. So, if the proper officer does not communicate, then that particular registration is said to be deemed registration. That is the first case. And regarding the second case, it is when the proper officer feels that the documents are not proper and he asks for more clarifications and more supporting documents, and he may send a notice to this particular applicant of registration, and that particular applicant verifies everything, and he sees that everything is according to the provisions or according to the needed documents, and he make the clarifications in a proper manner, and he again sends back all the documents to the proper officer. In such a case, if the proper officer fails to communicate back to the applicant within 7 days of receipt of such clarification, then in that case also it is said to be a deemed registration. So deemed registration happens in both these cases, of which we had a very brief discussion in the last video. Okay, today we will see more provisions regarding deemed registration. So in case of GST, the registration is not at all tax specific. That means for CGST, one registration, SGST one registration, IGST one registration. It is not like that. Okay, a particular person or a particular supplier who is liable to get registered only needs a single registration for all the taxes. Whatever be the tax he needs to pay, he only needs a single registration. Okay, so this particular grant of registration or the unique identity number under the SGST Act or the UTGST Act is also applicable under the CGST Act. So only one single registration is required. There is no tax specific requirement of registration. Okay. So once it is registered under SGST Act or UTGST Act, then it shall deem to be a grant of registration under CGST Act also. Okay. So, if in case any application for registration is rejected under SGST Act, the same will be deemed to be rejected under CGST Act also. So, whatever provisions are applicable under SGST Act for registration is also applicable for CGST Act under registration. So, that is the meaning of this particular provision in a nutshell. Okay. So now we'll talk about the casual taxable person. So I hope you remember about the definition of casual taxable person and also non-resident taxable person. More or less they are similar, but on a particular point, on a particular important point, they differ from each other. So let's see casual taxable person first. So it is a person who occasionally undertakes the transactions which involves the supply of goods or services or both either in the course of the business or in the furtherance of business, and he may takes or he may supply that goods or services, maybe in the form of a principal or in the form of an agent or in any other capacity in a particular state or union territory where he has no fixed place of business. Okay, so he will not be having a fixed place of business in a particular state or union territory. So that is the meaning of casual taxable person. So remember the last part of the sentence, in a state or union territory where he has no fixed place of business. So remember this point. Okay. And also, in case of a casual taxable person, he cannot exercise the option to pay tax under composition levy. So remember this point also. So while talking more about casual taxable person, so when if a registered person, if a particular registered person in some state, okay, in any of the state in India, he is a registered person in that particular state, but he wants to supply goods from some another state, and in that particular state he does not have any fixed place of business. So in this particular situation, if he wants to supply goods from that particular state, he needs to take a registration. Okay, so to explain it more in a more clear manner, an example is pointed out here. Okay, so let's see the example. K and Company engaged in supplying taxable goods and in supplying taxable goods is registered in Rajasthan. So this particular company is registered in Rajasthan state, and it wishes to participate in a business exhibition being held in Delhi. So in Delhi, this KN company does not have a fixed place of business. So in this particular situation, what should KN company do? In this case, KN company has to obtain registration as a casual taxable person in Delhi. Okay, that means um, occasionally the supply of goods and services or both is happening there. It can be either during the business time or in the furtherance of business. So there he does not have a fixed place of business. Okay, so this is the provision that is accepted in case of a casual taxable person, where a person has a registered business in some state, but he wants to supply goods or services from some other state in a country. Okay, so I hope this is clear for you. So now we'll talk about who is a non-resident taxable person. So read carefully this particular definition. A non-resident taxable person is a person who occasionally undertakes transactions which involves the supply of goods or services or both, either in the course of the business or during the furtherance of business, in the form of a principal, agent, or in any other capacity in a state or union territory where he has no fixed place of business or residence in India. Okay, so note this part of the sentence. It can be in a state or a union territory where he has no fixed place of business or residence in India. So that is non-resident taxable person. So in this case, the residence term is also coming into picture. Okay. So this case also he cannot exercise the option to pay tax under composition levy. So in this particular case, if a particular foreigner, a foreign person, okay, a person who is a foreigner and occasionally wants to effect taxable supplies from any state in India, for that case, he needs GST registration for the same. Okay, such person needs to register in the state from where he seeks to supply as a non-resident taxable person. So in this case, the particular person who is seeking for registration as a foreigner. But in the casual taxable person case, there is a particular there is a particular person who has registration in state A, but he needs to supply goods from state B. So in that case, he should obtain registration from for state B also. Okay, but both of the states were located in India. But here we talk about the person who is a foreigner. Okay, and he's a foreigner and he wants to make supplies from any state in India. So that is the case in non-resident taxable person. So what is the difference between both these terms, casual taxable person and non-resident taxable person? So in case of casual taxable person, he does not have a fixed place of business in the state or union territory where he undertakes supply, though he is registered with fixed place of business in some other state or union territory. Okay, so that particular casual taxable person is registered in some other state where he has a fixed place of business. Okay, but in case of non-resident taxable person, he does not have a fixed place of business or residence in India at all. In casual taxable person case, he has registration at least in one of the states in India. But in non-resident taxable person, he does not have any fixed place of business or residence in India at all. Okay, so remember this point. This is a very important point to remember. And what is the second difference? So a casual taxable person undertake transactions in the course or furtherance of business, whereas the business test is absent in the case of non-resident taxable person. Okay, so among these 2 points, give more focus to the first point, which describes clearly the difference between casual taxable person and non-resident taxable person. Okay, so, there are some special registration provisions with regards to casual taxable person and non-resident taxable person. So, these provisions are common for both of these categories. So, let's see what are the special provisions for both these categories. So, both these category of persons have to apply for registration at least 5 days in advance before making supply. That means at least 5 days before the commencement of business. Okay, so whatever be the threshold limit, irrespective of the threshold limit, these two categories have to get them registered compulsorily under the GST Act. That too at least 5 days before the commencement of business or 5 days before making the supply. Okay, so the registration is granted or extended only if they make advance deposit of estimated tax liability of such person for the period for which the registration is sought. So registration can be granted or can be extended only if this condition is satisfied. That means they should make an advance deposit of an estimated tax liability of that of such person for the period for which the registration is sought upon. Okay, and for a casual taxable person and also for a non-resident taxable person, permanent account number is compulsory. They also must have a PAN number in order to obtain registration. Okay, and also in case of non-resident taxable person, they should also have the prescribed documents with them to go for registration and the grant of registration. Then, the non-resident taxable person has to submit a self-attested copy of the valid passport along with the application signed by his authorized signatory who is an Indian resident having a valid PAN number. Okay, and um, in case of non-resident taxable person, the application will be submitted in a different form, whereas in case of casual taxable person, application for registration will be submitted in the normal form, as in other persons who are applying for registration, that is form GST REG01. So application can be made in this particular form and his registration of CTP will be a PAN based registration. It will be based on permanent account number. Okay, so till when they can have the registration certificate, or what is the period of validity of registration certificate granted to the casual taxable person or non-resident taxable person? So it can be earlier of these two dates. One is the period specified in the registration application. So in the registration application, a particular period will be specified either till that time or 90 days from the effective date of registration. So whichever comes earlier will be the period of validity of registration certificate, which is granted to casual taxable person and non-resident taxable person. Okay. And remember this point, this both of these category will make taxable supplies only after the issuance of the certificate of registration. So prior to that, they cannot make any taxable supply of goods or services or both. So in some cases, there may arise or there may arise a requirement for the extension of registration. Okay, extension in period of operation by the casual taxable person and non-resident taxable person. So in this case, if the taxable person intends to extend the period of registration from the period which is already mentioned in the application for registration. In this particular case, an application should be given in form GST REG 11 and that should be submitted accordingly through the common portal for GST, and also the payment of the amount specified should be done until and after that only the application will be acknowledged by the proper officer. Okay, so that is with regards to extension. So they can have an extension in period, and that too can be made, or application for that can be made in form GST REG 11 and with all the supporting documents and everything, and it should be done the before the end of the validity of current registration. So before the expiry of current registration, they should make an application in form GST REG 11, and also after making the payment only they may get, or the application shall be acknowledged. Okay, so that is with regards to the extension in period of operation. So in this video we discussed about the provisions other than what we mentioned earlier about the deemed registration under section 26 and provisions regarding registration in the case of casual taxable person and non-resident taxable person under section 27 rule number. I hope you remember the rule. Okay, I remember both the rules also. So I hope this video is clear for you. Go through the video again and try to understand the concepts and provisions. So we'll meet the next day with a new topic and new provision under registration under GST Act. Thank you.